it's time for us to turn to the papers. Jonathan Sacerdoti is journalist and broadcaster. Joins me now. Jonathan, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us here on Talk. All sorts of things. We've got a job to do before we can get to the stories that you've picked out. We've got the front pages to go through. Is this the end for our copper coins? The Treasury orders no new coins for the first time ever and expects to mint no extra 1 and 2p's in coming years. Either this is a non-story because nobody cares, because people don't use 1 and 2p's anymore because of inflation. Alternatively, it's a massive story because we're all going cashless. Which is it, do you think?
I think the smallest coin I use regularly is a pound coin.
Really?
Yeah.
You're so flash.
Well, you know, I wish.
Do you not use, like...
I don't really use money. I use this now. You just, you know,
the mobile phone.
Bing.
So easy to spend.
I remember when they introduced Apple Pay and Google Pay on the phones, and I thought, well, I'm never going to leave the house without my wallet. But
I always leave the house without my wallet now, except I do keep in my phone. I always keep an emergency note or two. I've got an emergency note or two, just in case I go to the cafe and their machine isn't working. Because if you've got to go to the cafe and you want a cup of tea and maybe a slice of toast.
That's very smart. No, you're right. You're right to do that, because there have been times I've been out and I haven't had any cash. I'm not for getting rid of cash. I think cash is really important in society and part of our economy. But coins, I don't use them very much. I actually reckon, if most of us think about it, we don't use coins that often. And these days, even tiny payments are really easy using mobile devices or credit cards, contactless. It's actually quicker. They don't jingle about in your pockets, make holes. Right. You know, why not? I can't get too excited about it.
OK. Daily Mail did. That was their front page. The Daily Express. Senior army officer stabbed outside barracks. This is the dramatic moment. An alleged masked moped knifeman was arrested over the stabbing of an army officer. We don't know that many details about the individual. I guess we've got to wait and see what happens. It looks fairly appalling to me.
It is deeply shocking, and I think it reminds many of us of Lee Rigby, and I think we look back at that. Also, I think the
question is, of course, we're still waiting to hear whether it's somebody with very severe mental health problems or whether it's somebody who is motivated by...
That is true, and while the police have said they're not treating it as terrorism at the moment, I think terrorism police are helping with the investigations. And also, you do have to ask yourself why some people with mental health problems drive around looking for armed forces members to stab. It's also, one witness said that after he stabbed him, he licked the knife. There was something definitely quite sinister and horrible about the behaviour. And I do hope that we hear more about exactly what happened, because the doorbell cameras from the area seem to show that he was driving around for about an hour beforehand, potentially looking for a victim in army uniform. So this is an attack potentially on the armed forces, and I think we don't really respect members of the armed forces enough in this country.
Meanwhile, the Financial Times, US tech slide deepens after big names fail to hit targets, and this is the story we were talking about with Richard Hunter. I mean, it is very concerning when those big companies, so the Magic 7, whatever you want to call them, Alphabet and Tesla and Apple, all these things, this could be the beginning of a real stock market problem if these companies fail to fire.
I think that's true. I'm certainly worried. I've got a little bit in Tesla, but I think these are long-term stocks as well. I mean, obviously we can hope that the instability in the world will sort of settle in some ways, and that maybe these companies, which do really hold the key to all of our futures in terms of battery technologies, in terms of AI, in terms of driverless cars and things like that, maybe in the long term will prove themselves. But of course they've been so overinflated. I think Tesla have got a problem though,
because they've come out with their models. I think they're very interesting and technologically superior to others still. The problem is that the design is quite dull and tired and stale. And until or unless they manage to reinvent themselves, I think they're going to have a problem.
But I think that the technology is the key to Tesla. Anyone can buy in different and more snazzy car designs, but what they've really invested in, and I think what Elon Musk does with all of his businesses, is concentrate on the technologies that are going to save the planet, that are going to make life different.
They're not going to save the planet.
Well, I think driverless cars will have a massive difference in terms of number of cars on the street, car sharing as a result of Tesla. I saw a speech where Musk was saying one day we'll all be able to Airbnb our Teslas while we're on holiday. They'll be earning us money.
I don't want somebody else sitting in my car.
You might not, but I'd be happy for the income.
Meanwhile, talking of income, have you seen how much Clifford Chance Partners is being paid?
I don't like to look.
Clifford Chance Partners paid more than £2 million last year. Clifford Chance, of course, is a big legal firm. It achieved double-digit profit growth, driven in part by work such as the defence of Mike Lynch, Autonomy's former chief.
Well, you know, I think we were in the wrong job. I saw you were looking for a job in your column the other day, so maybe you could...
I'm looking for extra jobs. I do a number of jobs,
exactly.
as opposed to do I want to just up and leave here just in case anyone else is
for that
listening.
much, I mean, you could consider it, no?
No, I definitely. I do lots of different things. Oh, blimey. Jaws swims up the Thames is the front page of the Daily Star. There's a picture of what looks like Hammersmith Bridge. A shark has been spotted wending its way up the Thames in London. Yeah. Meanwhile, Telegraph's got some interesting stories on the front page. Tom Tugendhat, he's saying he's willing to leave the European Convention on Human Rights in his pitch for the Tory leadership. I do think that this conversation they're going to have, until or unless somebody realises... I mean, James Cleverly did his very slick announcement. He managed to say absolutely nothing in that announcement about, well, what policies would he bring in, and this is their problem. The Tories had some fairly decent policies going into the election. The problem was that they hadn't delivered on any of the promises at the previous election, and people are getting fed up with them and lining their pockets.
I think with politicians, we've all learnt these days, in fact, for all of time, that whatever someone says while they're trying to get a vote, whether it's a general election or in a leadership election, we need to take with a pinch of salt. But Tugendhat, for example, I think wins a lot of points from some. Alan Duncan wanted him fired as security minister because of his support for Israel. He said it was time to flush out the extremists in our politics. I don't think anyone really would call Tom Tugendhat extremist. In 2021, I remember Tugendhat calling out Shami Chakrabarti for taking that peerage because she cozied up to the Labour Party and did the whitewash on anti-Semitism. And in the hustings, just now before the general elections, I saw him speak out admirably against someone in the audience who asked him about Palestinian deaths. He said they didn't care about any Palestinian deaths in Lebanon, in the hands of Arabs, only when it was involving Jews. So he's somebody that isn't afraid to express
he's not afraid to say
opinions.
what he thinks, which I think is good. Somebody else who appears not to be afraid is Harry, as in Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex. His big picture of him on the front page. So apparently he's done an interview with ITV. The Duke of Sussex has said that his legal crusade against the tabloid press was central to his breakdown of his relationship with his family. Do you think that's it?
Well, I think it might be part of it, but he and his wife have talked about their mental illness quite a lot, and I don't think anyone was forcing him to engage in that legal case. So if it was having such a detrimental effect on his mental illness, I think maybe he shouldn't have done it. And I think that he has done more damage to family relations than perhaps the courts or the media, because he's sold out all the secrets of his own family for profit.
There are some, I would agree with that. I think the other thing is that there are some people who seek to blame others for their problems. I mean, look, I totally get that. I understand. I don't think I can ever truly comprehend how difficult it must be to be born into that level of fame or even celebrity, that institution over which you have no control, that constraint that you have, and all the issues that come with it, and the fact that whatever decision you take is going to be influenced and controlled by others around you, that you have courtiers who act for different people, they do different things, they say different things, and there are these sort of weird battles that seem to take place between family members and all that stuff. I get it, that it must be extremely difficult to navigate, and I have some sympathy. That having been said, I think that he has trashed an institution from which he benefits hugely for his own personal benefit, financial gain. And I think that that is also problematic when I do get that being born, he was born second, so sadly he has to sit second to his brother regardless of relative competence.
I agree with almost all of that. It must
almost.
be quite, well, almost,
What do you mean almost?
Because I think being born into that position is challenging, but also affords you a lot of...
A huge privilege.
Not just privilege, but a huge opportunity.
Yes.
Prince William doesn't really have much say in how he undertakes his role born first. Prince Harry could have just disappeared and been quite a quiet prince doing good deeds. I mean, look at Princess Anne, for example, unfussy, not obsessed with celebrity. There are different ways to be born into that situation. And I would say this as well, while we can't comprehend being born into that level of privilege and scrutiny, all of us, in our own way, are born into difficulties and challenges, and we have to find our own way through them in order to make our lives and those around us work well. Life
is complicated. Meanwhile, the front page of the Times, Labour plans thousands of offshore wind turbines, which is the subject that I'm talking this morning, which is how should we power our nation? Alan is in London. Hello, Alan.
Morning, James. How are we doing?
Good morning, Alan. Very well indeed, thank you. So, how should we power our nation?
I don't think there's nothing wrong with the wind turbines. I think fracking is obviously the one that should be doing.
Don't you think the wind turbines are ugly?
Well, there's no more. I mean, when you drive past a windmill, what do you do when there's a windmill? You go,
Oh, I love a windmill.
Oh, well, what's the difference apart from height?
Well, I love a windmill. I think that everything's the difference.
But there's no difference at all, apart from the wind turbines are a lot higher. That's all.
Exactly, and more ugly. A windmill is a beautiful thing.
It's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing.
And it also spawned that wonderful programme and that character called Windy Miller, which, when you're aged 5 or 6, is hilarious.
I barely remember Windy Miller. Barely.
Oh, and then who came up with the name Trumpton? I mean, these guys in the 70s were comedians.
Well, it's the same as Captain Pugwash and all his crew.
Ah, well, you see, that's urban myth, I'm afraid.
Well, you say that, but...
The cabin boy was never called Roger. It was Tom the cabin boy. He was never called Roger. Sorry. Urban myth. Anyway, Alan, I have to leave it there because Jonathan's here and you know, he's made the effort to come in. And I know you phoned in and stuff, but I think you've told us what you need to tell us.
No worries at all.
Thanks, Alan.
Have a good day.
All right, there we go. That's Alan. Did you enjoy speaking to Alan there?
I didn't really speak to Alan, but
No,
I don't disagree with him. I actually find them quite majestic, the tall wind.
Do you?
I do. I've got used to them.
Oh, they're ugly and horrible.
They are ugly and horrible in one way, and, you know, everything has two sides.
So Labour plans thousands of offshore wind turbines.
Yes.
Good idea?
Well, it depends if you think they're ugly and horrible or beautiful and majestic. Actually, I don't
my
think it
issue,
does.
though, with the last lot that they built is that, which I mentioned earlier, which is that they packaged them up and then they sold them to, for example, Dong Energy, I think, which is a Danish energy
I think that's the point as well. It's not really about how they look. We can always try and put them in fewer beauty spots and more offshore and what have you, but I think it's about whether they're actually effective and whether they provide enough power and whether they work all year and all of those sorts of things. It's all to do with cost rather than necessarily just about how they look.
Meanwhile, The Guardian, they've gone sort of full tilt how to annoy us, revealed rich Western countries lead global gas and oil expansion. Well, you'd expect them to, I suppose. And then also the protesters Netanyahu addresses Congress. So it's not just over in this country that there seem to be lots of Palestinian flags flying, and they've got Gaza voices, 8 Palestinians tell of the war's impact on their lives. I'm not sure The Guardian has said very much about the people on October the 7th and what the impact on their lives was at that particular incursion, but you know, it's still tragic that people are losing their lives. Poor people from all sides get caught up in this.
I think that Netanyahu's speech actually was quite spectacular, whether one likes him or not. He is definitely a good performer in that environment, and while there were protesters outside, he actually specifically addressed that, suggesting that some of those people who are anti-Israel, and often, when you look at them closely, like many of those protesters who were burning American flags, one of them hoisted a Palestinian flag in replacement of an American flag outside the speech. He says that those people were useful idiots and people supporting them were useful idiots because he believes that those protests and the encampments have often been funded by Iran, and there has been some evidence of that being true in many examples.
When does this end?
I think it ends, as he said, when the Palestinians declare that they have no armed intention against Israel, when they declare that they want to live in peace, release the remaining hostages.
You see, because that's the interesting point, isn't it? Which is, this would have ended very, very quickly had Hamas recognised Israel that existing as a country and had indicated and said no further incursions. Anyway, I'm going to get some more thoughts from you, Jonathan, in just a few moments' time here on Talk. 6:22 is the time. Jeremy Corbyn is trying to form a rebel alliance to fight Starmer, according to the front page of the newspaper. The Sun talks about who's going on Strictly, except many of my callers have said they don't want to know who it is because they don't care about the programme, so I won't name the individual on the front page of the Sun. City M talks about Bang and the brands are gone, talking about Reckitt selling Sillet Bang and other brands, and the Mirror focuses on the soldier in uniform repeatedly knives. So, to your stories, Jonathan. So the first one is the Mail, and there's a row, what a surprise, about trans athletes.
Yes, trans athletes. So Lisa Nandy has apparently left open the possibility that trans athletes could actually compete with real women, that is, women who are born women. I mean, it is quite a well-tired, well-worn debate now. But
Shouldn't you say biological women as opposed to real women?
I chose my words carefully.
I know, so did I.
I don't think I should, no. And I think that, to me, I have an enormous amount of sympathy for trans people. I have done since long before this was fashionable. I worked on a TV development for a documentary about them back when I was looked at as a pervert for it. However, I don't think that trans people become the gender or sex that they believe they are. I personally believe that they have some form of mental misalignment with the reality of their biological body, and I think that we should do everything to help people who have that, but I don't think that that involves disadvantaging women in sports.
Do you think that trans people, I don't know, can they, how do they exist with that kind of mentality, though? Because if you say that you can't change your biological sex, and some people take that view, and what Lisa Nandy is saying is that, it's down to individual sports to work out, because I'm assuming, if you're, playing competitive tiddlywinks, it probably doesn't matter whether you were born male or female. It's not going to make much difference in the sport. But, of course, if
then we shouldn't have a sex category in that sport. The reason we have sex categories in sports is because women are biologically less likely to be able to perform against men. So whether there's a women's class and a men's class, it's obvious that somebody that isn't actually a woman shouldn't be competing against people who are actually
So
women.
you are presumably very much in the J.K. Rowling camp of discussions.
Of course I am. She's one of the only people in the public sphere who's speaking sense, because she's so rich, she's uncancelable, and good for her. Thank God for people like her, because I can say as a gay person, I don't see any personal identity with trans people any more than a straight person should. It's got nothing to do with your sexuality. Even they would tell you it's nothing to do with their sexuality, so I don't know why we're lumped together in this mumbo-jumbo fruit salad of LGBTQ+, whatever they've put on that week. This is nothing to do with being gay. It's nothing to do with being a woman. It is to do with having some, as I said, misalignment psychologically between reality and what you feel, and I support very much helping people with that, like any other mental misalignment.
Do you accept that other people have a very different view to you?
Of course I do. It's my job to debate them.
But that's the point, isn't it? Which is, there is a debate to be had, and what happens in our society, and sometimes in this, is it becomes so polarised that you can no longer have a conversation to work out how one should make sure that individuals are treated properly and appropriately in society. And it doesn't matter whether you're women seeking safe spaces or whether you're a trans person trying to navigate your life.
Yes.
That until or unless we have proper and sensible conversation, you then start to have a sort of very polarised view. But we could talk about that for all time, but we won't. A very quick word, if we can, on Andrew Chowdhury. Where was he living?
Yes, he was living in a rental flat that belonged to a Foreign Office diplomat, a Foreign Office envoy. This country, if we don't give them council houses, then we rent them Foreign Office envoy properties. I just think this country's got something of a death wish. When you think about this extremist who influenced actual terrorists, who served jail time, who we know is a problem, and then Foreign Office envoys are renting them their own private properties. This country sometimes has absolutely no survival instinct, and I really think it's time that we manage, just like the trans issue, to look these things head on and call a spade a spade.
Well, there we go, calling a spade a spade. Well, that's something that Ian Collins generally does, and he's here this morning. They've allowed you out for breakfast.
I don't know what happened there, James, to be honest. It's a crazy time to be awake. Can I just pick up on that absolutely spot-on point that was just made there? The T on the LGBT, what the heck? There's no right to even be there.
What, trans?
And not on the LGBT.
It's nothing to do with
the LGBT, UB40, ECHR list, whatever it is this week.
I'll leave you to
I know that you can. Well, the point is that you said people have different views. You can have different views. You can't have different facts. I think that's.
But you see, that's you're trying to.
I know there's an hour in this with you, James. I know
there is.
There really is.
Well, it comes down
and
to
thank goodness for J.K. Rowling. Indeed, I totally agree.
Well, you can agree with her if you like.